Rocket Lab is building Neutron for Launch 10, not just to clear Launch 1. On the call, that is the statement the CEO made. If you hold Rocket Lab, you got built for Flight 1 getting softer. Pad still aims at Q4 and end of year window is narrowing. I keep wanting that record quarter to clear the Neutron risk, but it did not. You still pay for an unlocked flight date. August 10, 2026, I lined up Rocket Lab's Q2 2026 earnings release against CEO Peter Beck on the earnings call. The release says the first big fuel tank for Neutron is being built on a timeline that gets the rocket to the launch pad in Q4 2026. It is not first flight locked for Q4, getting the rocket to the pad, and pad does not have the same meaning as flight. On the call, Peter Beck went further in one breath. That same pad timeline still holds. While the window for an end-of-year launch is narrowing, the work we are doing now is about risk trading, balancing the timing for our first launch against how quickly and seamlessly we can scale our 10th launch. I have a master's in aerospace engineering. That is a schedule split written into their own paper and their own voice. They named the pad quarter. They made the end-year flight window smaller. They named Launch 10 as the trade that costs colder Flight 1 certainty. Same call, the CFO still said first test launch later this year hopefully. He did not hand you a 2027 date. He also did not name the month. Which date is in your Rocket Lab position? The Q4 pad or the flight they will not fix? That is the unlocked flight date on the document. Next, what money showed up in the same release? The revenue number was not soft. That is why the sell-off stinks. Rocket Lab reported $234 million in revenue for the quarter, up 62% from a year ago. But notice the launch revenue dropped by about $20 million compared to the previous quarter. We will come back to it. Backlog hit $2.36 billion, another record. Pay attention to backlog by customer. Last quarter, it was about 49% government and 51% commercial. This quarter, commercial moved up to 57%. That is a good sign because the company is not living on government contracts. Real commercial buyers are also trusting Rocket Lab's products and services. Adjusted EBITDA loss was $8.8 million. They had guided a loss of $20 million to $26 million. So the loss came in much smaller than they told Wall Street to expect. Then they guided the next quarter. Revenue again higher, $250 million to $265 million. But GAAP gross margin down to 29% to 31% from 36.1% this quarter. Non-GAAP gross margin 35% to 37%, down from 41.5%. Adjusted EBITDA loss opens back up to $17 to $23 million. That 36.1% GAAP gross margin this quarter is the company's reported number from the Q2 2026 release, and it was not a clean operations got better story. The CFO said the quarter had a one-time help from tariff refunds, largely offset by an inventory reserve on the second Neutron flight, plus mix shifting toward lower margin satellite platforms and early minority. So, when Q3 margin guide drops, part of what we are watching live is that mix, not only one soft schedule sentence. Revenue still climbing, near-term profit path uglier on purpose. And after earnings, the stock still dropped almost 8%. I feel that the market is panicking on this earnings report. But then I look at what holders were reacting to. Neutron Flight 1, not the backlog. The owner's other side still stands. If you bought Rocket Lab for the business that already flies Electron and builds satellites, this quarter mostly confirmed that business. Cash and marketable securities around $2.4 billion. The company is not running out of money tomorrow. Record revenue on the sheet, thinner Flight 1 date on the call. Which one moved your finger on the sell button? Launch services looked broken on the scoreboard next. A lot of people stopped listening there. Launch revenue fell about 30%, and it is the wrong place to stop if you only read that one line. You would think the pets went quiet. The CFO said they flew a similar number of launches. The kind of launch work that hit the dollar line this quarter changed. HASTE is Rocket Lab's cousin of Electron. It uses the same structure and the same engines, but a different top end, so the payload flies a high-speed up and down test for the military instead of staying in orbit for missile defense and hypersonic test work. HASTE money gets booked over time as the work moves. Electron money mostly counts when the rocket leaves the pad. This quarter they flew HASTE missions where a big piece of the revenue was already booked in earlier quarters. So launch looks weak on the page while the factory is still busy. Space Systems almost doubled. That is the part of Rocket Lab Flight 1 is not carrying yet. Space Systems did $189.5 million this quarter. A year ago, it was $97.9 million, almost twice. The CFO said the lift came from satellite manufacturing stepping up, plus the first dollars from Mynaric after the deal closed. Mynaric is the laser communications company they bought in Europe. They also formed Rocket Lab Germany around that close. The job of that unit is to make satellites and components for European customers who want domestic supply, including assembly and testing. Germany already runs serious factories. Rocket Lab is plugging into that lane, not starting from zero culture. On the call, Peter Beck said Rocket Lab is one of the only two companies that can build and launch their own satellites right now. The other seed is SpaceX. Iridium is the third vertical he wants. Build, launch, then sell the service and spectrum. The deal is still aimed at closing in mid-2027, and that close is a separate story when the filing gets harder. I covered their $266 million contract when the stock was near $60 and the room went quiet. Link in the description. That award does not need Neutron to deliver. Keep that in your head while sellers keep pricing Neutron Flight 1. And the fastest proof they can already execute is not Neutron at all. For this national security job, reusable is not enough. It has to be fast. In Q2, Rocket Lab flew Victor's HASTE for the Space Force. Notice to launch on Electron, 16 hours 42 minutes. The previous record was Firefly at 27 hours, not Falcon 9. Falcon 9's public strength is cadence and reuse from fixed pads. Different contest, different schedule. After orbit, commissioning. In plain words, you turn the satellite on and check that its systems work before you trust it with the real mission. Space Force gave them 72 hours. They finished in 38, about half the allowance, 34 hours early on that schedule. Then they had 84 hours to track, chase and photograph a target satellite that was not cooperating. They did it under 59 hours. That is about 30% early. So Rocket Lab can already move in hours on Electron. Holders still got sold overnight on a thinner Neutron Flight 1 window. They can move fast today. The softer Flight 1 calendar still needs a reason. Peter Beck did not cancel Neutron. He bought cadence risk with Flight 1 softness. Medium-lift first flights often move later than the first public dates. Vulcan is United Launch Alliance's rocket in the United States. First talked around 2019, first flown in January 2024. Ariane 6 is Europe's heavy launcher. First talked around 2020, first flown in July 2024. Rocket Lab already delayed Neutron once after the January 2026 tank test. So narrowing is expensive for holders who only own the first flight date, not proof the rocket is dead. Neutron slots sit at $50 to $55 million with no early discount. Demand, his word, is extreme. Ghost is a launch pad in shipping containers. First for Alaska in 2027. Cash this quarter. Free cash outflow about $110.1 million, liquidity near $2.4 billion, and about $1.08 billion raised on the at-the-market sales before that program shut. The CFO's path. Adjusted EBITDA positive the quarter after a successful first Neutron test, cash flow positive maybe 18 to 24 months after that turn. Iridium close would reset the cash story earlier. If this breakdown is useful, hit like and subscribe. I go 3 layers deep every week. The stock will keep dipping on Neutron talk. That is the decision surface. A softer Flight 1 timeline is not my exit signal. On time or early 2026 flight would be a bonus for me, not the base case I need to hold. Around $80 still looks reasonable exposure. When Rocket Lab was near $60 and the room went quiet, I said I would add. The price came back up. Same habit now. Dips on Neutron talk. Wow, space systems and electrons still work are a chance to add. Then wait for pad proof or Iridium getting closer. If the pad date moves later with no reason and no length, and the live business stops growing, that is different. Until then, I will not let one unlocked flight date run my whole decision. Here are 3 things to watch. 1. Whether Neutron hardware actually reaches the pad in Q4 2026. 2. Whether next quarter's margins stay compressed the way they guided or improve after Mineric's early costs settle. 3. Whether Iridium closing still points at mid-2027 because that is the cash reset the CFO named. Record company on the sheet, unlocked Flight 1 date on the call, holders paid the schedule. When Neutron actually hits the pad in Q4, are you buying the soft window now or still waiting for the flight headline? I already made the video for the week the room went quiet near $60, when the Rocket Lab's biggest launch award hit and the stock still sold off. Click here to watch it now.